Hey everybody, this is Quiet Riot here with another podcast, and happy Labor Day. Of course, Labor Day weekend, usually the traditional end of summer, but usually always a very good time. 3-day weekend, so I hope you've all been off work and been able to enjoy it. Maybe gotten to a barbecue today, thrown back a few cool ones, or perhaps hung out with some friends on the lake. Regardless, hope you also remember the contributions of the folks from the early labor movement, union workers. Really, Labor Day celebration for all workers, but so that you remember the ones that came before us that helped fight for fair pay, safe working conditions, paid days off, 40-hour work week, overtime pay, even helped fight for early health care benefits for workers. I think a lot of us have a tendency to take that stuff for granted, but certainly workers out in earlier generations had to work in more difficult and trying conditions. Excuse me, just gonna got a little bit of a parched throat right now, so let me get a sip of water. What I want to talk about today is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. I say that kind of sarcastically, but I'm 31 now. I've been out working since I was 15, so it's not my first rodeo. I want to talk about office politics today. I've worked a variety of jobs, including bagging groceries. First job I ever had was mowing lawns out in the hot summer sun. A couple of my buddies back in Middletown, where I'm from, and back in those days, we didn't even have a riding lawnmower, so pretty much push mowed everything, man, and it was hard work, but it taught us work ethic at a young age. And we used to put on our own little yard sales every summer. This is back before we could drive or anything, so we'd have yard sales and try to sell as much of our old stuff that we didn't want anymore, just to make money. And we'd shovel snow in the winter, and like I said, mowing lawns is the first real job I had. But I've stocked shelves, grocery store before. I bagged groceries. I pushed carts. I worked as a telephone fundraiser for a while. Had to do an unpaid internship in college, even though it was professional work as a journalist. Still had to work unpaid. So I guess. And I was a union steward for a while and got involved in this fight to help a bunch of workers get fair pay. I guess I'm just trying to establish that I paid my dues, and but I've never been really skilled or that good diplomatic when it comes to dealing with office politics. And I think a lot of it comes from, I became independent at a young age because I had to deal with bullies a lot when I was a kid, and I think that just instilled in me that I had to rely on myself. Couldn't always expect other people to bail me out. Though I had some good friends and stuff when I was growing up. When I was very young, I was kind of a loner, didn't know a lot of people. But, and I've always been a bit of a nonconformist, very independent, maybe a little bit rebellious, but I also think I'm quite practical. But for those reasons, I've never been much of a kiss ass, and I don't like having to kiss up to people, lower level supervisors, that sort of thing. Very difficult for me. And because of that, it's caused me some issues when it comes to dealing with office politics. My most recent jobs, I worked in the Indiana state government for 3 years and 2 months. And when I first hired in there, I liked my boss an awful lot. Actually, she was really the boss's boss. But she brought me in because they wanted to do more writing and more publishing. And I was working in current employment statistics at the time. So we were putting out jobs numbers. And I wrote up several of these labor market information reports and some stuff that was going to go on the website. Even worked with a graphic designer from our department there. And lo and behold, like the higher-ups, in this case it was Republican politics, the reasoning that this stuff never got used. And unfortunately, that boss that I really liked, excuse me, she ended up leaving after 6 months. So lo and behold, she's out the door. Now, I also had a very good female supervisor for a while when I was in CES, and I liked her, and the two ladies I worked with very laid back, and it was a good working environment. Unfortunately, after I was in that unit for about a year, we had a federal restructuring, downsizing, and I had to leave that unit, so I went over to work in occupational employment statistics, and there we put out median wage statistics. Basically sent out these surveys to all these employers, and we put out median wage statistics. So it gives students and job seekers a good idea of what kind of jobs are hot in the labor market. And also employers use that information when they're trying to determine what competitive wages are in hiring. And of course we're dealing with the new normal now, so it's important, you know, regardless of where you live, all 50 states have this program. They put out these statistics. Go and look at it before you decide what you want to study in college, or if you have to retrain at some point because you get laid off. Go look at these statistics. But anyhow, getting back to the topic of the podcast, office politics. When I got into this new unit, I had a new supervisor, a guy about 10 years older than me. But anyway, I think there was always a bit of a, I wouldn't say a personality clash, but for one thing, I got to pick him in terms of going to his unit, because it was that unit or it was another one. They gave me a choice where I wanted to go after we had that restructuring to deal with, because we had two ladies retiring at the time. And but I quickly found out right away that there was this little rat pack there, mostly of white men who were older than I am. And rat pack in terms of, I don't know, they act like they were fraternity brothers or some kind of bullshit like that. And there's just always a lot of joking around and office gossip and stuff you had to deal with. Of course, people would talk about sports, and that didn't bother me at all. I mean, I used to be a sports writer. But there was a lot of backbiting and gossip, and when it's directed towards you, it can be very difficult to deal with. Of course, the best way to handle it is just to take the high road and ignore it. But it can be hard at times. I mean, there were some unprofessional things said and done directed towards me. And it gets to be a pain in the ass, though, when you're one of the younger ones in the unit. Like I say, I always just went to work, tended to do my job, go home. I never been a big networker or gone to work with the intention of socializing, making all kinds of friends. I mean, I made good friends in a lot of the jobs I've had, but for the most part, I just work is work, and whatever I do outside of there is my business. That's the way I look at it. But a lot of people, you know, I'm sure a lot of you run into politics and stuff where there is people just socializing, gossip, and shit all the time. You have to deal, especially in these office environments, and they could get quite aggravating and annoying. But anyway, I guess still learning how to best deal with it, especially if you got somebody who's more independent like me. I just don't like brown nosing and kissing all the butts and that sort of thing. Excuse me, 1 second. Get another drink of water here. I mean, I really get. Whoa, camera. Yeah, the camera just went bye-bye there. Apologize for that. I'm gonna get it set back up. Really could use a better tripod. If anyone would like to buy me one, I'm using a pretty cheap one right now. But anyway, I think I got that straightened out. But getting back to office politics here, and it is Labor Day, so I want to expound upon this. You know, really, I guess kissing asses and all that kind of thing may be the smarter thing to do. It's just not something that everybody is best fit or best equipped for. I know when I worked as a journalist, covered a lot of live events. When I wrote for the Star Press, for example, they had me covering high school football and basketball. And man, I was all over East Central Indiana. They sent me all over the place, covering events. But the cool thing about that was I was out working in the field by myself. I mean, there'd be other reporters, but for the most part, you go out, you cover the event, you get the story, you interview people, get some quotes after the game, and you come back with the story. You have to get it in the newspaper, you have to be on deadline, but really you have a lot of creative control in a job like that. And I got to write a lot of feature articles and personality profiles and that kind of thing as well. And what I always liked, again, was the creative control and the fact that that's what I liked about working as a journalist. Certainly, it wasn't the money. I never made that much money working as a journalist. And I think going into college, didn't have any idea that print journalism would change so much and go so much into digital journalism. Just in the time, you know, I graduated from college in 05. And things really changed a ton. And I wish I knew how topsy-turvy it was going to be, because there's just not a lot of work in that field anymore. Newspaper subscriptions took a nosedive when everything started shifting. And as working as a journalist, you know, there was some politics you dealt with as well in the newsrooms and some of the egos you had to deal with. I would have to say, though, wasn't as bad as like when I worked at AT&T in that call center as a business care rep, and then I was also a union steward there, or like in state government. I didn't think state government, especially in the civil service, non-political positions, I didn't think it'd be as political as it is, but it is very political. And I used to have this guy that was this annoying little rat, he was a supervisor, but he wasn't my boss's boss, and he wasn't my boss. He would always come into my work area and basically badmouth me to my supervisor, and they were good friends, and that caused a lot of problems for me. And also my boss would go to subordinates and say things and cause problems. And that got to be very hard to deal with. I never respected that. I mean, I dealt with bad supervisors before, but having to deal with, you know, when they go to other co-workers, people you work with, and they're stirring shit up all the time, that got to be a real pain. So I was hoping to hear some of your stories and perhaps opinions. I know I'm not the only person that's dealt with office politics or maybe a bad layoff or two before. So I'd like to hear how you folks deal with it. You know, I got a buddy I talk with all the time. Mostly we're just going on about our work days and helping each other through it, that kind of thing. But he says, you know, you're either part of the resistance, which I guess I've always been because I'm more independent, or you're part of the establishment, part of the problem, more or less. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. In fact, my buddy says one way that he deals with the backbiting and gossip, which can be hard to deal with. I don't like dealing with that shit. I mean, you can ignore it and take the high road, but at some point, like there's unprofessional things done directed towards you, so you got to address it one way or another. And you go, and I have a tendency to just want to go to them and say, well, hey man, what the hell's the problem? And then, but you got to watch out doing stuff like that, because then you're deemed as confrontational, you know, and somehow a problem employee, because you want to deal with things honestly, and you don't believe in the fucking gossip, people that act like high school girls that gossip and engage in sophomoric crap all the time. So it can be trying. Like, you don't always know what best way to handle it is. Yeah, taking the high road, obviously a better way to go, but it's easier said than done at times. But my buddy says a lot of times he likes to pretend like he's a street ninja, and he's working his samurai sword. And I mean, you can pretend, and obviously, I apologize. I need to practice more. My samurai skills kind of suck. My skills as far as wielding that sword around needs some work. But he says he likes to pretend that he's a street ninja, fighting in the alleyways of Tokyo or something, and that these are other guys he runs into and split their head open with a samurai sword. Of course, I'm not suggesting anyone should actually do that, but it can be a good visual exercise to help you through shenanigans and bullshit that you might have to deal with. And then I got another buddy who suggested that you should just forget it and go fishing and camping on the weekend. And that's a very good suggestion as well. But anyway, happy Labor Day, everyone, and I want to hear some feedback. Like I say, this is something I've had to deal with on and off throughout my life. Been working for 16 years, more than half my life now. I just turned 31 this past week. Now, luckily, my next job is more of an independent sales position. I'm going to be going out talking with business owners and managers. So shouldn't be as much politics involved in that. I don't have to sit in an office or kiss a boss's ass all the time. Get on my own, and really, however many sales I can make, that's going to drive my income. And this is a product that all businesses, most all businesses, have to have nowadays if they process credit card transactions. So I'm looking forward to that, just working hard, and also being out in the field on my own again. Like I always liked working as a journalist.